Hello, my name's Mark Ryan. I'm the Chief Strategy and Compliance Officer with MedHOK, and welcome to one in a series of podcasts. Today's podcast revolves around the recent 2016 STAR program announcement for Medicare Advantage and standalone Part D plans. There's no denying that CMS has had a great deal of success with the STAR program over the past several years. As many of you know, it really started to come into the fore since the passage of the Affordable Care Act. They had a ramp-up demonstration project for a couple of years that didn't abide totally by the Affordable Care Act, but provided some breathing room to allow plans to begin to move toward the heavy metric orientation within the actual Affordable Care Act. By any measure, it's been a great success. If you look on the slide, back in 2010, about 14% of plans and 24% of enrollees were in plans with 4 stars or greater. By 2015, that number had increased to 40% of plans and 60% of enrollees. With the recent announcement by Medicare, for 2016, they're almost at that 50% mark. 49% of plans will have 4-star or greater ratings, and more importantly, 71% of enrollees are expected to be in plans with 4 or greater stars. Again, a remarkable achievement over these past few years. Another great part of what CMS has done is they've built a very strong and diverse measurement program. About 2/3 of all Medicare Advantage measures are Part C, the medical side of the equation, covering the Parts A and B of the Medicare program, and about 1/3 is the Part D pharmacy side. So more and more, while still the medical side has much greater weight, CMS is really starting to focus strongly in on Part D or pharmacy outcomes. Interestingly as well, they are also focusing not just on the clinical side of things, but emphasizing non-clinical portions. About 1/3 of all STAR measures are clinical and about 2/3 are non-clinical. When you take into account the effect of the triple weighting, which generally goes more toward clinical measures, you could probably say that it's still about 50-50 between clinical and non-clinical. But what's real important is they are really emphasizing the overall member experience and plan performance. So more and more, while plans were often putting a major priority on getting some of those hard clinical gaps closed to achieve high star ratings, now they must venture into much harder to grade areas, trying to really excel on the CAHPS and the Haas survey measures, as well as really look very closely at plan operational performance as well, and generally really emphasizing overall member and indirectly provider satisfaction with the health plan. CMS has really built a very crafty system that should really continue to push the boundaries of quality. Why do I say that? Because they built a system that really creates a huge advantage for plans to reach 4 and 5-star. Those are clear financial advantages. Back in the day, some plans didn't believe that the costs of getting to 4-star really mattered, and before the latest rigor, it probably didn't as much. But today, CMS is basically having all of the financial benefits of high performance be pushed through to the member in the form of better benefits. So plans with 3.5 stars and greater are allowed to keep more premium in the so-called rebate portion of the rate calculation, and plans with 4 and greater star achievement also get an additional 5% premium bonus. Again, this is all passed through to the member. It's mandated to be so. So this gives those 4 and 5-star plans, and even some 3.5-star plans trying to get there, a major advantage in the marketplace. 5-star plans, of course, have the greatest benefit because they get the supreme advantage of marketing to beneficiaries year-round. Another important point here is the fact that if you add all this up, in a general sense, we calculate that plans that have high star ratings essentially have about an 11%, up to 11% premium advantage in the marketplace depending on their actual star rating. What does this mean? Well, in hard cold cash, it almost means about $100, fast approaching $100 for the average Medicare beneficiary per month in added benefits. That clearly attracts members over time into these high quality plans, and you can see that that's working with 71% of enrollees now in these high performing plans. A couple other clear successes here. The average star rating has steadily increased from about 3.71% in 2013 to 4.03% in 2016. So slow and steady increases throughout all of the plans out there. Most of this progress has been with those 3.5 star plans that fell just short of that high quality rating moving into the 4-star category. At least that's what we saw for 2016. Achievement still tends to be linked to several factors. Number one, a majority of 5-star plans continue to be plans associated with those integrated delivery systems where you might have a health plan that is owned by a larger integrated delivery system with a significant number of sometimes primary care providers as well as specialty providers and other ancillary providers like hospitals, home care, and things of that nature. But it's clear to note that IPA network plans are starting to make inroads as well. We've seen a couple of new introductions of high-scoring 5-star IPA network plans as well. The tenure of the contract and tax profit status also plays a factor in high star performance. So, for example, the longer tenure you are in the program tends to lead to higher quality scores, tends to make sense. And as well, those plans that have a non-profit or non-taxable status also tend to do somewhat better in terms of quality achievement too. And from a regional perspective, higher achieving plans also tend to be grouped on the West Coast, Midwest, and Northeast, while many plans in the South tend to have much more trouble achieving 5-star status and 4-star status as well. Where are some of the challenges that we saw in the latest announcement? Well, number one goes without saying, about half of all plans are still failing to obtain at least a 4-star status. And with the moving target now, with the removal of some defined achievement measures, these rates are going to continue to float. So it may be more and more difficult for some of these plans that haven't yet achieved 4-star to actually achieve it and then maintain it. 6 plans are eligible for termination due to continual low performance. So after a 3-year period, CMS has the right to actually terminate or non-renew your contract for that achievement below 3-star status over a 3 or greater period. And it's also clear that high performance is becoming more complex, as I noted with the first bullet on this slide too. It's very interesting to note that for 2015, there are 11 5-star MAPDs, and there are actually 12 in 2016. But only about half of them are the same, about 5 of them are the same. So you've had a number of 5-star plans in 2015 that actually have lost their 5-star rating because, again, it's becoming more and more complex to maintain 5-star status. And you had a couple newcomers coming in, filling in the void. So clearly plans across the board, but even among the highest performers, they're challenged in achieving and maintaining high star status. Standalone Part D plans are clearly a problem area and challenge in the overall Medicare program. And generally, Part D star performance, whether it's on standalone Part D plans or MAPD plans, is very problematic. The actual average star rating for PDPs will actually drop from 3.75 in 2015 to 3.4 in 2016, a very measurable reduction. Just 41% of PDPs have achieved at least a 4-star status, and stunningly, only about a third of standalone Part D members are in plans with 4 or 4.5 or 5-star status. When you look at the MAPD statistics, Part D measures also tend to serve as a noticeable drag on overall performance for these plans. As we noted earlier, the average MAPD score now is just over 4, but the Part D measurement is well below 4, so it means that plans have to achieve even higher Part C scores to make up for very low Part D scores to even achieve a 4-star status. 8 of 15 D measures are below 4 for these MAPD plans, and interestingly, 5 of the Part D measures are at 3.5 or below. Now, some folks would argue that there were some sort of stunning changes in calculations this year, not only for standalone Part D plans, but for MAPDs as well. The diabetes treatment was retired, and there are 3 other measures that were included that were not used in the prior year. But nonetheless, these shortfalls here in the Part D program are going to be a major focus of CMS moving forward. This is especially the case when it comes to how pharmacy benefit managers are looked at by plans, because CMS will have this greater scrutiny. And many plans are asking, are they paying enough attention to the STAR measures as well as some of the compliance duties for MAPD plans when quality and compliance performance are delegated to the PBMs by the plans. So Part D success in the future will really dictate 4- and 5-star status in the future. There is a noticeable insourcing trend among plans, so many plans are not only taking over the quality functions for STAR performance from PBMs, but many of them are fully insourcing, bringing in many of the prior authorization, appeals, and grievance activities as well. Other plans tend to be really ramping up and having very aggressive delegated oversight of the PBM, which is a good move given some of the problems we see in scoring. What's interesting is, notwithstanding the overall bad performance and notwithstanding the fact that the MAPD's scores do tend to be dragged down by Part D, some of this oversight and some of this insourcing probably is helping overall with MAPD plans, because MAPD Part D outcomes tend to be much better than the same measures for standalone PDPs. So there is some movement in the market to try and bring things up, notwithstanding the fact that there is a drag right now in the overall scoring system by Part D. The medication therapy management comprehensive medication reconciliation measure is going to be a major, major concern by CMS as well. The composite average score was only just 2.3%. And the MTM program is clearly being really closely scrutinized by CMS. They recently backed off some major changes early this year, but given this very poor rating on the part of CMR, we clearly will be seeing CMS look to see major improvement in this measure over time, and probably putting back on the table some of the medication therapy management program reforms they had proposed recently. Interestingly, we also had another major study come out recently that related to STAR, and it related to the impact of dual eligible beneficiaries, low-income beneficiaries on SNP plans or plans with very high concentrations of dual eligibles in the STAR program. And SNPs clearly have long complained that the STAR system really is biased against them. And this impacts sort of 3 groups of plans out there. SNP exclusive plans, those dedicated just to operating SNPs. They could be institutional SNPs, chronic care SNPs, or dual eligible SNPs. Plans with high concentration of SNPs in the market, where a great deal, a majority or a vast majority of these overall plans have dual eligible or SNP products in the market, and they tend to dominate the lives that those plans have. And then lastly, plans with a high concentration of dual eligibles, whether they're SNP-specific products or not. For example, Puerto Rico has a very, very high concentration of dual eligibles in the market, whether enrolled in SNPs or in non-SNPs. Finally, CMS seems to be recognizing that this complaint from SNP plans, or those plans dominated by dual eligibles, do have some legitimate concerns about whether the STAR system allows them to achieve high quality or high performance. So some empirical evidence done by the RAND Corporation and backed by CMS on this subject was again just released. We think this was deliberately timed. CMS has obviously reformed the program and had tremendous success, and they were probably ready to tackle this issue of how SNPs are treated overall in the STAR program. SNPs in general have a renewed policy endorsement from CMS while they were on life support not too many years ago. CMS really sees SNPs as the secret to reducing Medicare and Medicaid acute and long-term care spending in the future, and they've really put some very strong standards in place, including certification of the model of care through NCQA and some new MOC audit directives that seem to be coming down the road and will become regulation in the future. So at this point, they could, with the STAR program stabilized, really look at this issue and see where they were going to go from here. So the main question that this study asked was, are MA or Part D sponsors that enroll a disproportionate number of dual eligibles and or Part D low-income subsidy beneficiaries disadvantaged by the way the STAR program is currently operated? And it's important to remember that about 1/4 of Medicare beneficiaries fit these categories. While they represent 1/4 of beneficiaries, the actual cost of them is much, much larger. Plans generally either have a low penetration, say 20% or below, or a high penetration, 95% and above, of these types of individuals. So there's a great divide. Those that serve these types of populations in the MA marketplace and those that don't have a major priority on serving them. There were 16 clinical measures in the study, and what it found was that in 12 of the 16 measures studied, LIS or dual eligible and or those that were disabled were likely to receive less often the recommended care in those measures. So that clearly is a very startling statistic. It basically says that, in most cases, bar 4, these individuals have less outcomes in the program and probably tied to very legitimate reasons related to their comorbidities, their socioeconomic statuses, as well as some health literacy challenges. So CMS is building a dual demonstration MMP quality assessment and bonus program that's being rolled out now with the MMP plans. The big question here is, will this study now lead to a refinement of how SNPs are approached in the STAR quality rating system? Will SNPs, for example, be rolled into the MMP measurement program that's under development and being rolled out now? Or will they find some ways to mitigate these barriers to 4- and 5-star plans in the current and general overall Medicare star rating program? We'd like to share a little bit of this chart with you from the study as well. You can see the areas in blue are the measures where SNP plans or those with high concentrations of dual or LIS status would more likely to receive care, whereas the red are where they would be less likely to receive care. So pretty empirical evidence related to this. That concludes our podcast. Before we end, we'd like to tell you a little more about MedHOK. MedHOK stands for Medical House of Knowledge. You can find us at www.medhok.com. You can read or watch our blogs, our newsletters, and podcasts at that same address, or you can search MedHOK University on YouTube to listen to our podcasts as well. If you'd like to subscribe to our newsletters and blogs and podcasts, you can go to medhok.com, read a blog, or email us at compliancenewsletter@medhok.com. A little more about MedHOK's enterprise platform. We are an enterprise-wide platform covering risk management, care management, quality management. You can see some of the modules we offer in each of these areas. Again, all users are working in one system, and we manage both medical and pharmacy care. Thank you very much for joining the podcast, and we hope to see you in the future.